Hey, what's going on, traders? Going 3 for 3 today, but not without a fight. As always, we're going to jump right into this. Hopefully you like the new introduction. Going to try to ramp up the video production here a little bit on the channel. So let's jump right into it.
Okay, so our first trade being here on charge point, you guys can see the previous resistance all the way down here at 1850s. It made a pretty nice move up through that area. And believe it or not, I was actually pretty excited about this one. It was moving pretty fast. I tried to be a little bit more patient on my first entry because I knew that this thing can tend to do exactly what it ended up doing, which was kind of moving a little bit higher. Really would have loved to have been more patient and get that first entry up through 19, but we didn't. We started this thing with 100 shares, added 100, and then 100 again, bringing our average up to, I believe it was 1904. We get the move down through 19 and we cover off 2/3 of our position. We took 200 shares off. And as you can see, it ended up being a mistake not to take the whole thing, but that's kind of what we do. We sometimes look for that bigger move. I was looking for that 1850 area, that previous resistance, if we scroll out, for a possible retest for the rest of those shares. I had a good average, 1904, had 100 shares left. So if we could have got anywhere down towards that 1850s, that would have been a really nice trade. And unfortunately, that's not what happened. It decided to go back up, grind its way. Was hoping this would kind of be the top here and maybe fall back over. Doesn't. I let it go high of day for the simple reason of just seeing what it wanted to do at 1950. It did reject there multiple times. On this last reject here, I was ready to cut it at 1950 if it went through here. However, it did not. It rejected again. It tried to come back up one last time and test it. And when it rejected this time, I said 1950, the break of 1950 is definitely going to be my stop. So I went ahead and added 100 shares, bringing my average up to 1923-ish, I think. Immediately get the move down to about 1915. We take some off at our average, and then we take a little bit more below our average, leaving us with 50 shares. It decides to come back up again, still just going to cut the remaining shares up there, but at least now it would still be a green trade if we get back to the highs. It doesn't mix a little bit of a lower high at 43, and we come back down to that same area. However, this time VWAP is caught up, the 13 EMA is caught up, everything's kind of caught up. So really wasn't looking to mess with this anymore. Just happy to get out. I did take half of it, looking to see if we could get the other half to bust down through 19, but it didn't seem like it wanted to. So we actually ended up almost bottom ticking that second and last cover at 1914. 1911 was the bottom there. And as you can see, this thing decided to go not only through 1950, but kind of grind its way higher. Ultimately, it did try to come down to 19 one more time, hit that same area yet again, and eventually climbed all the way back up and went higher again. So decent trade there on charge point, even though I wasn't a huge fan of how it was trading or my first entry. Still managed it very well considering. FREY was our second trade. This one was pretty picture perfect. Got a nice move up through the $0.50. We started it at 65. You guys know that I really love to look for those areas through $0.50 and whole dollars. If you notice, most of my entries will always be somewhere around the 70-cent mark or the 20-cent mark. And that's because I look for those retests on the $0.50 whole dollar. The odds are if you get a move up through a $0.50 whole dollar, it's most likely, highly probably, going to come back and retest that $0.50 whole dollar that it went through on a fast move, right? Kind of put two things together there. You're looking for a fast move up through one of those areas, and then you're looking for that retest. I really need to start, I feel, becoming more patient for my covers, looking for those key areas as retests, because they almost always happen. As you can see here on FREY, I did take some off pretty much right at where we got in our first entry, and then I scaled out the other bit there closer to that $0.50 break. And as you can see, it did go down through it and actually went all the way down to VWAP. So I still had 100 shares here. I ended up with 100, and then took 100 off and then another 100. I remember dealing with AMRS, which was our other trade, as this was happening, and I didn't want to miss my ad on that one, which I will show you here in a second. So I remember taking this whole thing off where I should have just put an order for half and then been done with it. And I could tell Steve was about to talk, so when I had muted him. In our last trade here, AMRS, this one actually turned out to be pretty good. Although after we got in that first entry, I wasn't too much of a fan. As you can see, it turned into a grinder. So again, $0.50 break. We get in on that $0.50 break a little bit lower. The range on this wasn't as great, so it's okay to maybe take a little bit more shares, looking for that retest. a little bit sooner, right? So we ended up starting this with 200 shares at 458. It did eventually, like right after we got in, go up to 471. So a little mad at that. However, not really sure what I would have done. Assuming I would have taken at least half off on this drop down to 457 had we got a better entry. Thank you for the subscription there. I appreciate that. Speaking of which, that makes us now 3 subs away from 6,000. Appreciate that very much. It does mean the world to me that the channel is starting to grow, and it's all because of you guys. So thank you for that. So how we got the better starter, I do like to think we would have probably taken half off, then probably would have got the same ad, but it would have been a little bit less risk because we would have had less shares, still would have brought our average up to the same spot, and we would have got the nice scale out as well on the backside regardless. So I just didn't like how this was kind of grindy. I wanted to add up through 5 if we could get there. But unfortunately, it didn't seem to want to do that. So once I realized that it kind of put what I thought was a top in, the volume kind of ramped up here, gave us a nice little doji type candle, and just kind of hit it on the way back down. Because I didn't hit this on the front because it wasn't fast. You will notice that in my trades, the only time I will continue playing the front side is if it continues to go fast, just like CHPT. So if we go back over to CHPT, you'll see it was all on that front side candle because it was a nice fast move. And the same with Frey. I mean, Frey was a little bit lower volume, but it was making a nice straight up move. So if it goes up to those next areas where I would like to get an ad, I'm perfectly okay with hitting it if it feels like it's starting to jiggle and I can add some size on what I consider a nice front side before the pullback. However, AMRS, once we got in this one, it decided to just grind, right? So grind. At this point, I'm not really interested in the trade anymore because it's not moving as fast as I would want it. However, it doesn't mean that I can't turn it into a green trade or a good trade overall. I just have to pick my spot, right? I'm not just going to blindly add on the front side. I'm going to look for a probable area to add on the backside and look for that to pull back afterwards. So what would I do in the case that this doesn't pull back right here, right? It's a good question that somebody might be thinking. If it, say we add and then it decides to go back to high of day, I would just continue to wait, right? So I would have had 200, added 200 here. I would have looked for 520, right? I would have said, okay, let's see what it does when it goes to high of day because we still haven't got any kind of an actual pullback yet, right? So that's what we're looking for. We're playing the front side, sure, but we're ultimately looking for some kind of a pullback, something with red candles involved. So if this ended up being a green candle, we still haven't got that. So I would be looking for the break of 5. I'd be looking to add probably another 200 because it's grinding. I'd probably do a 111 in this case. Eventually just looking for the pullback. And then when the pullback starts to come, that's kind of when you start to feel out the price action. Obviously try to turn the trade green and kind of go from there. So patience is definitely key on this. I mean, had I held my full position, until this previous resistance, which we could have looked for, that would have been pretty awesome as well. So sorry.
Delta Whiskey Alpha Charlie.
Get out of that. Sorry. Thought I had that closed off. But that's all I got anyway. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Always appreciate that support. We did have a pretty decent day, so can't complain. Only 3 tickers, but we did get ads in all these tickers, which means we ended up getting some bigger wins because we are starting to scale, as well as when you are building a position. The whole reason of building that position is to get bigger winners. The small winners should only be on ones that you top tick and they just work. That's the whole point of taking nibbles on things, that if they just work, you at least make something. But if you start building a position, the whole reason to build that position is to make more money. So I'm trying to do that as we move forward. I'm trying to really extend my patience. If you notice, a lot of times I would take take profit orders. I would put those covers out a lot higher, just like pretty soon right after my average, especially when I had bigger size on certain things. But if you notice today, I was pretty patient in waiting for most of my covers. Unfortunately, I still need to work on maybe waiting even a bit more, especially on ones where I could have maybe split up my order a little bit better. Here on Frey, could have got a little bit more out of some leftovers, etc. But also, one last thing before I let you go. If you've made it this far, and if you have, you are probably one of the likely ones that might be interested in this. There's a join button down below. And if you do hit the join button, you'll notice there's different perks of joining. Some are just a role in Discord that you can be an active supporter. I think that's the lowest tier one. The middle one, though, is where you can get access to all of my live streams. So if you're someone that wants to go back and watch everything that I've live streamed and pretty much see all of my live trades, that will be available. All you got to do is hit the join button. It's the middle tier one. I think it's $5 a month. And that's what you would get. And then there's obviously one more higher tier, and you guys can see all the perks right there. When you click the join button, it'll tell you each one. So if you do that, I appreciate it. I appreciate the support. And as we grow, hopefully we can start to get a little bit more support as far as, the passive income goes, because this is a lot of work, doing all the back end stuff on YouTube. It's not easy, but, I do love doing it. But it would be nice to, get rewarded for doing it. So I will see you all tomorrow. Hopefully you have a good day. If you do have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them down below. You can find me in Discord or over on Twitter, and I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.